Get ready for the world's greatest Arsenal podcast. Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Guns and Yellow Ribbons. I am your host, Fergus. I'm joined by my good friends, Trevor, Gunnar Hilsey, Capo Dan, and this week in the hot seat we have got Dale boy, Posh Gunnar, and he's going to show off his medals today. We are going to look back to the City game. We'll look ahead to tomorrow night's game against Chelsea, and we've also got the Women's Champions League semi-final on in the background. So if something happens in there, we'll quickly bring it up for you. Evening, everybody in the chat. Trev, you're in charge of chat. I'm not touching it. I've got enough stuff here to deal with. How are you, Trev?
I'm all right, thank you, Ferg. I'm still buzzing about the season we're having. Got the ladies' game on in my left eye now, watching that. As we just said, Fergus, our young lads reached a cup final. We're having a great season in the league, and we've had a bad run over the last few games, but it's not lowered my enthusiasm at all. I'm not angry. I'm a bit disappointed, a bit fed up, but I'm not angry. I'm just can't wait till tomorrow, Ferg.
Can't wait till tomorrow. Dan, Capo, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Lovely bank holiday day outside today. So I'm really pleased to be sitting in a laptop talking to you guys. I'm joking. I am really. Enjoying it. Enjoying a bit of a rest ahead of tomorrow. And like yourselves, got multiple screens on football in the background. So
yes, good. Well, I've got Blackburn Luton up here behind me and the ladies on there. They're just showing the offside on there. Dale, how you doing, mate?
Evening, mate. I'm looking forward to my invite to Fergus's sports bar by the sound of it. All the multi-screens you got going on.
It's called high tech. So, talk to us about your you got some silverware already, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm buzzing with that. It's 39 years old and still winning silverware. Won the league last year, and yesterday we won the Veterans Cup. So Peterborough Veterans Cup season winners 22-23. So yeah, a real good day yesterday.
Brilliant medal. Well done, mate. Well done. So I couldn't kick the ball if I tried, even at 39. Never mind now at 52. I'd be screwed.
52,
Listen, before we
laugh, 52. He's at least 75. Come on.
Listen, guys. Before we start, we're thinking of John Dickinson today. Died in 1982. Gone to a game of football. Died on the North Bank when the West Ham ICF, somebody in there decided to take his life. Trevor, you were there on the day. Unmute yourself, mate.
You've done it again. Yeah, I was there. I was there on that day. I didn't know John, but it was mayhem on the North Bank that day. Absolute mayhem. And I'm not throwing any accusations out there. There's all sorts of lines of thought of what happened and what didn't happen, but I don't know. So I'm not gonna guess about it. All I know is that John Dickinson went to a game of football that day and didn't go home through no fault of his own, and that should never happen. So all our thoughts are with him today, mate.
Yeah, as you say, he went to football and didn't come home. This was us in Manchester, in Yates's Bar, Manchester. Could you imagine one of us didn't make it home? That would be absolutely awful. So for that reason, we do think of you, John. We're back to the normal screen. Right, let's go look at the City game first of all, because there's a few things to unpack about that. It's done, it's dusted. We will go through it, and we'll look more forward towards the Chelsea game as well. So going into the game, the lineup: Xhaka was back for Vieira, and it was Odegaard's 100th game. The lineup was, I've lost my lineup. Where's my lineup gone? While I get. That's the City lineup. What did you make of the lineup, Dan? Come on. Improv.
I mean, what was the lineup? So it was Ramsdale in goal, Zinchenko, Gabriel, Holding, Ben White, Partey, Xhaka, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, Jesus. Right, that was the lineup. Yeah.
Ramsdale, White, Holding, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Partey, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, Jesus. Yeah.
It's all right. It's good to know we're well rehearsed. Yeah, that's for me the standard lineup, right? I mean, for me, strongest team. Lots of chat around should Trossard start, but I think Saka and Martinelli for the whole season have been fantastic. Same with Jesus. I think even since he's come back from injury, I think he's brought us up a level again. I think in our attacking sort of fluidity. I think our mistakes in recent results have been at the back rather than up top. So I think for me, Jesus absolutely deserves to start as well.
Dale, tactically wise, it seemed like Man City didn't want to do their normal playing out from the back along the ground. Decided to cut out of midfield a little bit, and obviously clearly it became evident early on with the first goal. But what did you make of them changing and go long ball for a change rather than the beautiful football that Pep normally does?
I think they exploited what we've been speaking about a couple of weeks in a row now about the exposed defence we've got, and I think some of that became known in that game as well. We gave so much space to their midfield to run at us after that long ball. It just exposed that back four again. Yeah, I mean, we say what we will about that game. One thing we can't take away is how good City are. They're an incredible side, and it was frustrating.
The girls are down 2-1, unfortunately, from a set piece. Yeah. Trevor, talk to me about the first goal. Kevin De Bruyne. The fear was Haaland and how much damage Haaland could do. And from what I've seen on bits of extended highlights and replays, and from on the night as well, Haaland, whilst effective, was just like he was more or less taking the role of instigating and clipping balls on and so on, and he did so for that very first goal for Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah. I'm going to be blatantly honest with you here, Ferg, in that I've not watched the game back, mate, and I was happily under the influence, thankfully, when the game was going on. But for me, from the very start, you just knew that we weren't in it. Man City had their get up and go inside them, had changed their shape a little bit, and once that goal went in early, I think it was the 7th minute, wasn't it? We just weren't in the game. They were just too good for us, mate. So I'm really sorry I can't go into the goals specifically, because I'm going to be honest and say I've not watched it. I don't want to watch it back. I thought that Man City were too good for us, and I'm finding it hard to swallow, to be honest, mate.
No, I get that, Dan. Look, I thought that on his near post that Ramsdale could have done a bit better, but you looked at it a little bit more in a bit more detail as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was just a fantastic strike, to be fair. But when De Bruyne takes the ball, he takes it early. I think he catches people off guard, but he sets it so far outside the post and calls it back into the bottom corner that I don't think there's many keepers in the world that would say that, in all fairness. I think Kevin De Bruyne is a fantastic striker of the ball. I think there are other errors in that goal as opposed to the goalkeeper. I feel like criticism of Ramsdale is probably not warranted, to be fair. I think he also kept us in the game more than what we should have been.
No. Listen, I get that, and I agree overall over the law of averages for the season. He's definitely had a much better season than for some of the faults that I'm picking up on. Del, did you think that he should have done better on his near post, or were you in the same camp as Dan?
No, I'm with Dan on that one. There was one of the comments I see flash up a moment ago. The midfield didn't track back when De Bruyne was running at us. The defence kept backtracking with him. Not one of them went to close him down. I don't know. I just think that there was errors leading up to that which shouldn't have meant that Ramsdale had to even attempt that. But I think it was great by De Bruyne. But yeah, Ramsdale's not a fault for me.
So we're in the stands and it's like coming close to half time. I've gone out to get some beers, and just as I go out to get some beers, the Stones gets a goal. Now, talk to me about this one. I won't go to you, Trev. I'll go to Dan. Yeah. Talk to me about this on the offside side of things, because for me, I've seen it on several different angles, and you can see these two different angles here. And Trevor, you can come in after as well on this, because we talk about the opportunities to compromise the game. And when you can see the live camera angle at the top up there, that to me, and when I looked on Match of the Day, on extended highlights and everything else, everybody, including Stones himself, felt the ball was offside. But when you look at the still down below, where the angle of the camera is really weird, it's not even flat on. It shows that Holding's maybe tip of his toenail is offside. Dan, talk to me, because you believe that it probably was correctly adjudged onside.
In all fairness, I'm not really sure what all the fuss is about. I think it's clearly onside. I don't think there's a single angle to come at that and say that he's offside at all. It's all about perspective with the camera angles, right? And if the camera angle's slightly to one side or the other side, it will make the still image look like he's off or on. So as long as they don't forget to draw the lines, which we know they have done in the past, but when they do actually draw the lines and do their job to the minimum standard, the lines are calibrated within such a small sort of degree of error. So yeah, for me, he's onside. That is what VAR is there for at the end of the day. And this one hasn't gone for us, but ultimately what we want with VAR is to get the right decision, and they did. The frustration for me on that goal was not the fact that they scored it, it's the fact that we gave the free kick away in the first place. And it was just, I think, frustration from Partey to give away the foul when we should have just said, okay, let's soak it up, let's get in at half time and let's see what we can do. But that goal just killed us off, really.
1 second. Is my sound out, by the way?
No, it's okay now.
Okay, all right. Del, what's your thoughts on what Dan has to say there about the offside? Like he's saying, it's perspective, but when you can see it in live play, and that is the live screen, everybody but a man come along and said he's offside.
Yeah, that top image for me, if you can put that image back up again. So if you look at the bottom image there, so you can see, right, his foot is stretched out. So they're saying the defender's foot stretched out. Now look at the top image, right? Are you telling me his foot is like, on that top image, you can see a couple of feet gap between them. I'm sorry, Dan, I disagree with that. I think he's offside. I think most people I spoke to said the same thing. If you notice the one thing in the bottom image, they never show you that bottom image with the ball in where you can see the ball as well. If we could see that image there at the same time as where you can see him striking the ball, I'd be more convinced. But I'm not convinced about that at all. I know VAR's given it, but we all know VAR can get things wrong, right?
Yeah, clearly. Trevor, the opportunity to compromise, are we seeing it evident there?
Opportunity to influence. No, I think that one was too tight, and you can look at it from both ways. But I think all I'm hoping for now, Fergus, mate, is that they've got something planned for the end of this season to bring this VAR into line, the officials into line, and whatever they're going to do, I don't know. I mean, we spoke about poor John Dickinson earlier. I believe that today or yesterday was the anniversary of Abu Diaby suffering that real bad break to his leg, a career-ending tackle from that Sunderland lad. And I believe he got a yellow card for that, the Sunderland lad. It was the most blatant red card I've ever seen in my life. And the lad got a yellow card. And who was the referee that day? I believe it was Dermot Gallagher, the same referee that's on telly now, preaching what's right and what's wrong. So it's been going on for a long time. I'm trying not to go off on a rant here, mate. I really genuinely am. But I'm really struggling with these VAR officials. I mean, let's hold our hands up and be honest, right? Let's hold our hands up and be honest. What happened to Tottenham yesterday? That lad got his head booted off his shoulders nearly. And the bloke's got a yellow card and stayed on the field after a VAR review, then got up the other end and scored a goal. So the opportunities to influence are massive, Fergus, and we're seeing proof of that. And I'm just hoping that the end of this season comes and they're going to say, right, we're going to wipe the blank sheet. Let's start again thinking about how we're going to use this VAR because it works. It works if it's used correctly. Right, sorry, Ferg. As for the Man City game, it was men v boys. We were bullied. We played our best, but I think our best was good enough. That's it.
Blackburn have just got one back against Luton, so Luton mightn't be coming up in the playoffs just yet, but we'll see on that. So, listen, the key for us at that point was to try and get in at half-time 1-0. I honestly do feel if we came in at half-time 1-0, Arteta could gather their thoughts, Del. Do you think it would have been a different game? Do you think we could have come out and done a bit more? Because I think it was dead at 2-0, wasn't it?
Yeah, the reality is, I guess we'll never know, but the City looked good. Let's not take that away. They looked very good. We'd have had a better chance going in at 1-0, of course, and I think every single Gooners fans across the country, you could hear their heart sink when that second goal was given, because I think we all knew at that point it was over. At that point, it got to the stage where we're looking for, in the group chat, we were looking at positives, and someone said in like the 85th minute, well, at least we won the second half, and then they went and scored again. So it just goes to show kind of how tough the game was. But the second game was just nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Again, it's ifs, buts, and maybes, and if we could have made it to half time, who knows? But unfortunately, we didn't.
Odegaard come into a little bit of stick done about the hospital pass he gave to concede the third goal. You've looked back at it. What were your thoughts?
I think it's a bit like the other goals, in all fairness. I think it's more to do with the setup that we had and more to do with Man City's setup than individual errors. Players give the ball away at times, but it's about being in a position to counter press and try and win the ball back, or ultimately drop back into a mid block or a low block. I think the setup didn't allow us to do that. I think
you sent me a long list of bits and pieces. I didn't put it into this, but I've still got it on the screen on here about the change in different formations, the way that City changed formation versus the way we went 4-1-4-1 and 4 and what was it 4-1-2-3 and go on, off you go.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately both sides really pressed in the same sort of way, except for City's press was a little bit further onto the centre backs and tried to put pressure, and we sort of waited to try and set a trap and then press. But ultimately, we pressed up in such a high position where if they'd had and been building in a 3 and a 2 like we did and how they normally did, I think we would have caused them more problems. But they sat up in a 4 and a 2, and ultimately, when you're pressing as a 5 against 6, they're always going to have a spare man. And what they did is they waited for us to press. They waited until we got them into a position where we was in a good press. But then because we were so high up the pitch, they had just a little dink over the top. And ultimately what Man City wanted to do was to create one-on-ones with either Rob Holding or Gabriel. And they did that very, very well, because De Bruyne just floated in and behind Thomas Partey. And every single time it was Haaland versus Holding. And I don't care how good you are as a centre-back. If you're one-on-one with Haaland, you're gonna have problems at least once or twice in the game. So... they set up, I think, very, very well, Man City. And then once they've got control of the game, there was like a 20-minute period where we did drop back into a mid-block. But for me, it was a bit too late. What we should have done is set up very similar to City with 2 6s in front, a bit more of a mid-block, and actually just create our own transitions. Because when you're in a decent shape and City are pressing and they're pushing up high like we did and leaving spaces, we've then got the players to get in behind. But yeah, for me, it was more, rather than Arsenal versus City, this was a Guardiola versus Arteta. And I think in this one, Guardiola sort of came out and was on top in this one for me.
Yeah, Trev, Danny from Berkham Wonderland has got a real good point in the chat there that you just put up about Partey. Partey's job is to soak up the pressure, and he hasn't been doing it for the last 4 or 5 games. We saw it at West Ham, we saw it at Southampton, we saw it at Liverpool. Giving away stupid, pieces which lead to penalties, etc.
Yeah, you can't argue the fact that Partey has had a drop in his form a bit, Fergus. Right at the wrong time of the season for us. It needs to be said as well. But he's what we've got. If you look at the bigger picture, he's still had a good season. I know he's not been quite at the top of his game at the last couple of games, but I'm looking at bigger pictures all night tonight. But Dan got me thinking then, because I made note of it. Dan's exactly right. When you make the Guardiola Arteta connection, we've said before on here on more than one occasion, Arsenal play like Man City. Arsenal use a lot of the same tactics as Man City do. We like to get the ball out wide quickly and make one-on-ones out wide, or make one-on-ones just inside the flanks, And Dan's exactly right. I think Guardiola knew what way Arteta was going to play and thought, right, we're going to counteract that, and we're going to start playing the odd long ball and putting them off their track a bit. And it worked perfectly. It worked perfectly. We just didn't know how to play against it. We've got to be careful though, right? We've got to be careful, because I keep saying I'm going to look at the bigger picture tonight. We're taking the last 4 games and we're making a lot of noise about it. And rightfully so. We've got a right to, because it's been disappointing, right? It's been really disappointing. So we've got a right to talk about it at length, what's gone wrong and what's not going quite right. But we've also got to have in our heads as well, we're still second in the league. We're still the second best team in the country. We've still had some great performances this year, and we're still on the up. So there is a bright side to all of this. So, Let's pull City and the other draws apart, but let's keep in the back of our heads that that's not the whole season. That's just a bad few games. And hopefully tomorrow night we put that right. Yeah, we really put that right.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Trev. And I think your point about looking at the bigger picture, I think we shouldn't be looking at this as too much of a negative, because the reason why I think Guardiola sort of outthought and outthought Arteta is more. It's not down to a lack of quality. We've got quality in our team, but what we don't have is the quality in depth. And I think Pep has just a lot more flexibility to make changes and make those small little tweaks to make differences in games, and we haven't got that yet. So it's a transition. It's a part of, we keep saying the process, but now progress. How do we get to the next level? And ultimately, I think that's where our next level will come from. It's quality and depth.
Exactly, Dan. Exactly, Dan. You know, and let's be honest with ourselves, right? People are going in really heavy on Holding, right? But Holding isn't Saliba, right? We've absolutely missed Saliba massively missed the man. But at the end of the day, Holding's what we've got to bring in, right? And Holding is going on the field and giving it everything he's got. And it's all right saying Holding missed a pass like we have done just now, or Holding didn't press up quick enough. That's fine. But some of the things I've seen written about Holding are not warranted, not needed. He knows what his levels are. Holding knows that better than anyone else. And he's doing his utmost for the Arsenal. It may not be quite good enough for us, but he's giving his utmost for the Arsenal. And all I've ever asked for is 100% from the players on the field. And I've seen no reason to question Holding's commitment to the cause. He may not do it as much as anybody else, some others do, but his commitment to the cause is there. And for that, I support him.
Yeah, it's clear to see, like, you know, the guy is definitely a Premier League quality player, but he's not a Premier League winning quality player. But he gave his all on Wednesday night, with the assist of Trossard. He got a goal back for us, and, you know, gave us a little bit of hope. I know we were 3-0 down at that point. You know, I didn't at that point, because it was so late in the game, think, here we go, we can get it back to 3-3 and take a point. But you know. Would you have started Trossard, or even if you look ahead to the Chelsea game? There's a question that Bradley Ballard put on Facebook, which was, take that down a second, Mike. Thank you. Let me throw this one. Do you think Jesus has upset the rhythm we were in when he came back into the team? Not saying there's a bad player one bit, but the system we had in place, and because he was out for so long, seemed to have changed when we come back. And I know we've added Trossard into the mix now as well. Del, do you think that maybe...
Oh, ladies and gentlemen. Get in.
Have they? Oh, yeah. Let's bring it up. Let's see if this... I'm probably going to get nicked on YouTube for this. Let me take it off for a second until the goal gets replayed.
Take it off.
Yeah. Hang on, the goal's just going to come up in a second. Del, what do you think about that point then? Do you think Jesus may have caused a little bit of fly in the ointment?
No, I can see the question. Is that goal? You're going to see this?
Yeah.
Good header.
Great header.
Yeah, well worked goal. Yeah, very good goal. Very good.
Great header. No, I can see where the question comes from, but I would say no. Rewind just a couple of games back, his first game back, he scored 2 goals, he won the penalty. Nobody questioned him then. I just think we've just had an unfortunate run of events. Do I think he should have started against City? Yes. Do I think we should try Trossard against Chelsea? Yes. I think he was absolutely the right player to start up top. The question for me in the City game, which you may remember we was talking about the other week, was Zinchenko. I said, was Zinchenko the right player to... Was that an offside? They ruled it out.
It's been checking. They're checking it at the minute.
It's still checking at the moment.
Check over.
Right.
But no, I see the point, but I honestly don't. I can't question Jesus. He like I say, 3 games ago he won the penalty. He scored 2 goals. So no, I don't question Jesus at all. He was part of that process at the start. He came back his first game, got 2 goals. Like he'd never been away. It's just been an unfortunate run of results for us over the last 4 days. I don't think we can pinpoint on Holden. I think that's unfair. I don't think we can say it's Jesus. It's unfair. I don't think we can say it's Partey. I think as a collective, I think we can all agree that there's been holes that we can pick out all over the pitch. But the reality is, it's just been a bad patch for us. Let's face it, right? If we go ahead and beat Chelsea tomorrow, that will change us. People start to think positive again. All it's going to take is a win to turn the players round, to turn the fans back round. I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned.
Dan, we can look at various different things. There was a red card appeal that we could look into the game, but the dice is thrown. It's in City's control now. How do you see this panning out? They've got 7 games still to play. Alvarez's goal against Fulham was great, but they weren't convincing against Fulham, were they?
No, but they did what they needed to get over the line. Look, it's not over. I'm not going to say it's over. It's not over until it's mathematically done. But I do think you're going to struggle to overturn what could be a 4-point deficit against a top team. And this is nothing to do with us, by the way. We could finish second with 90 points. And how many times has that happened in the history of the Premier League? Not that many. So this isn't down to us. This is down to the machine that we're up against. So I think there's no harm in saying we've come second to this sort of side if that does happen. And I don't think the players should be downbeat. I don't think it's a successful season. I think it's a progressive season, but it's not success yet. Ultimately, success is winning a trophy. But there's a lot of positives still to come out of this. And I think even these last 5 games, this is the players saying, okay, I'm going to stake my claim for a starting place next year. We're going to get momentum going into next year. And at a minimum, we're going to say that we were the second best side in the league. So there's still lots to play for, even if we don't go on to win the league. But look, if we don't put pressure on City, then any chance we do have is non-existent. So it's down to us to get back on the wagon and go again.
Trevor, this is what Arteta had to say after the game.
Saying that I'm incredibly proud and thankful for everybody has contributed to bring Champions League back to this football club. With 5-6 games to go, something that hasn't happened in over a decade in this club. So congratulations and thank you so much for everybody's contributed with that. And thank you for still being upset and not accepting that Champions League is enough and we want more, because this is what is going to demand to get what we want.
Yeah.
Trevor?
First time I've seen that, to be honest. And I think he's just summed it up spot on.
Yeah.
He's a great user of words, is Arteta, and he's exactly right there. I just differ to Dan a little bit in that I do think that our title challenge is now over. I'm still full of hope. But I think looking at it logically and looking at the way Manchester City played against us and the way they just managed to squeeze the win at Fulham, I think it's over. But I think second, even third for me, I'm still smiling at the end of the season. Still better than I thought we'd get. Absolutely devastated that we didn't manage to hold our form. If that's the way it runs out, who says it's not, but I'm still, we could lose the rest of our games this season and I still wouldn't be angry. I'd be disappointed, but I wouldn't be angry. I'd still be thinking, okay, we've capitulated a bit at the end of the season. Bring on next season because we're going to improve again. It's really difficult, isn't it? While we're still talking about Manchester City, we've got to talk briefly about the financial fair play, right? We've got to talk briefly about
that almost brings in the question, because we did ask for questions, and some of that what you're going to talk about is in Stefan's question. So Stefan's question covers a lot, and I'm not saying we'll be able to answer all of it because some of it is just beyond us. But what do we least like about City? State ownership, financial unfair play, the shithousery, bad winners, plastic fans, and stuff like that. So it type of brings across answering that question. Go on, the financial fair play. Or unfair play, as Stefan says.
Well, I don't hate City for it. I don't hate Pep for it. I don't hate their players for it. Because if they're allowed to do it, then they're going to do it. If they've got the money, they're going to do it. But don't forget, this is my view, by the way. I have nothing to substantiate this, but we're here to give our views. I think that it's not just about the financial purchasing power of City, the transfer fees they pay, I think that there must be much more to it than that, because other teams can pay those transfer fees. I wonder, I'm being careful with words here, I wonder if there's some kind of backhanders that go on to agents, to the players themselves. Obviously, their salaries they're paying are way above what anyone else can afford to do. And as long as they're going to get being allowed to get away with it, they're going to do it. And you can't blame them for that. You can't blame City for that. It's the powers that be, to coin a phrase from Troy Deeney. They need to grow a pair of kahunas and start coming down heavy on this financial fair play. Then we level out the playing field, because there's no doubt for me that if we keep going as we are for the next 10 years, we're going to have 2, possibly 3 teams at the top of the Premier League, and they will be 20 or 30 points clear of the rest, because that's the way it's heading. We've seen the trend. It keeps going and going, and it worries me greatly. But I'm not angry with City about it. There's people in power that are there to stop City doing it, and they're not doing it.
On the financial fair play piece, Trev, they were saying there was a big focus on Newcastle on Sky Sports. I don't know if anybody saw it, and saying its financial fair play is measured over a 7-year period. And they were saying, in theory, Newcastle can go out over the next 2 or 3, 4 transfer windows, spend 300 million quid because of Mike Ashley's lack of spending historically. And they would still be within their rights to do so. That's the problem we face now. Because City have done it, there's nothing stopping. I'm not saying Newcastle are going to do it, but they can. There's nothing stopping them going out and doing exactly the same thing. And that just adds to exactly what you just said there. You then find yourself in a position where you've got City are going to be miles ahead of everybody else because they've got the financial firepower. Newcastle, we all know, if the Arabs go ahead and buy United, they could be in a similar situation. And they get round it as well by sponsorship deals. You look at some of what Man City have done. If they put so much into the local area, they can sponsor themselves. It then generates a form of income because of certain projects. The whole thing it needs an overhaul. And what makes it worse is when these teams get done for financial fair play, because City have, let's not forget that, they have been done for it in the past and they got a fine. What use is a 50 grand fine to somebody who's got pockets that deep? It means absolutely diddly squat. It's almost like they can stick 2 fingers up and go, oh, well. Now, I'm not saying that does happen, but it does make you question what conversations go on behind the scenes for that to be deemed a punishment, because it's not a punishment at all.
Ferg, you've done the Trev. Don't you ever dig out Trev ever again.
I done last week as well. It will be interesting to see what happens with Everton and what they get done for their financial irregularities. And I know they've got restrictions in the transfer market, etc. And then see what happens to Manchester City with regards to the 101 charges that have been brought to them. Because Everton, they're probably going to go down, and if they do go down, I think they're in really big trouble, because they're going to be that restricted with huge wage bills and a new stadium and everything else. I think no matter what you chuck at Man City, unless it's a massive point deduction or kicking them out of competitions, there's no point in taking trophies off teams. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference, I don't think. If we come second this season and Man City get it. Win the league and it gets retrospectively handed to us, it will always be chucked back in our face. You didn't really win it, and I don't know. It'd just be interesting to see. David Twister's got a question.
It's not that simple though, is it? If I just follow up on that one quickly, it's not as simple as just spending power, right? Because ultimately there are clubs that I'm not really that bothered about that are spending just as much money, if not more, such as Manchester United, for example, and without getting into the club, because everyone's got different opinions of clubs that they like and dislike, but Manchester United ultimately generate more revenue than other clubs in England, and therefore have a higher spending power because of it. Whereas Man City's isn't really revenue that they generate themselves. It's either, as Dale said, sponsorships, and there's fine wording on what they can and can't use as sponsorship, such as if it's an arm's length deal, is I think some of the accounting words that they use. And I think we can probably all agree that the majority of them are probably not going to be. But when you've got a big group of companies owned by their ultimate owner that can then be making payments off the side and put it through the accounts of other companies, that's where, for me, it's too far, and you're competing against clubs that are not just spending lots of money, but quite blatantly bending the rules, and that ultimately is what we don't want to be seeing in football, right? If you've got managers being paid a contract with Man City, but then another contract with an affiliate entity, that's quite blatantly wrong. And exactly as you said, I think any financial fine is not going to improve the situation. Newcastle, I think so far have actually been very, very good in how they spent. They've been quite smart. They brought in some good players. Look, they are going to spend money, but I think they're going to spend it when they start to generate higher revenues, and they're going to do that this year by being in the Champions League. But you're competing against owners that are playing tiddlywinks at the end of the day. They're putting money in and having fun with a club. It's like us going on the PlayStation and saying, I'm going to buy this player and that player. And that's ultimately what they're doing. So
that's it.
Yeah.
Without getting into the financial fair play and getting too down into that one, I just want to finish off with a few questions and then look at the Chelsea game because go on.
Ferg,
go on.
Can I just simplify that? Because
yeah,
I can really simplify it, right? Think of the superstar. I can't name them all, but just off the top of my head, Mahrez was the main name about in the country when he was at Leicester. Grealish was the main name about everywhere when he was at Villa. Haaland was the main name about last season, and they could have gone to any club, but they've all gone to Manchester City. And they've not gone to Manchester City because they like Manchester City more than any club. They've not gone there because it's Manchester City. They've gone there because they get the most of this. That's all it is, mate. That's all it is. I don't know how it happens. I don't know why it happens. But
I don't think it's any different than back in the day when it was United getting all the players, when Arsenal United were the top two. And then Chelsea came in 2003, and they started doping everything. Let's just try and get through a couple of these questions. We did ask people to put questions in, so I would like to respect them and do it. The first one, the second one, or third one actually now comes in from David Twist. Do you think City will now relax a bit and drop some points? And do you think like the distraction, Del, of the Champions League semi-final and final, because that's ultimately what they want? Do you think they might drop a few points? And
no, in all honesty, like, no.
I know.
When you look at their fixtures as well, they've got such a kind run of fixture. I won't say easy because there's no easy games in the Premier League, but I was literally looking at it a second ago to see what they've got. So they've got their last couple of games: West Ham, Leeds, Everton, Chelsea, Brighton. Can you see them realistically? I mean, obviously, I miss Brentford off there as well, but I mean, with the exception of potentially Brighton, I think City will absolutely roller coaster a lot of them. I think they'll go through them like a steam train. Do I think the distraction of the Cup and the Champions League will make a difference? No. I think if anything, the FA Cup is a motivating tool for them because they've not just got a chance to get a trophy, they've got a chance to get a trophy against their bitter rivals and local in a local derby. As for the Champions League, I think if they get past Real Madrid, which I think they will, I can't see any. They'll go on and win it, and I do think they'll win the treble. I don't like to say that, but I just think that good aside, they've just got better and better and better as the season's gone on. I think if anything, their Premier League fixtures give them an advantage in the other competitions as well because they've not got as tough a games as what some have got.
Okay. Let's look at the Chelsea game then. We have got that coming up. Arsenal-Chelsea is tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. at the Emirates Stadium. Our head-to-head against them is quite good of recent years. We did go through a spell where we couldn't get a win for love of the money. And I recall not the last away game, the away game previously when we went and done 4-2, meeting up with Trevor and everybody else, and nobody gave us a chance at that point. And that was like part of the turning point from a very poor run of form that Arsenal were going into effectively the current run that we're in. Trevor, what's your hopes and expectations against Chelsea?
Well, if you go to form, we should win it, shouldn't we? Because our form's been a bit ropey, but blimey, Chelsea have been terrible. So it's a great opportunity for us to get our confidence back again. Great opportunity to lift our fans again. Although after the performance from our fans in Manchester, we don't need lifting anymore. I'm optimistic that we're going to have a positive evening. We're going to score a few goals, and we're going to get back on that winning trail again. I think it'll be too late for us, but I want to see us win and win comfortably tomorrow.
Dan, we're going to be without Saliba, El Neni, Tomiyasu. Chelsea are going to be without Kai Havertz and Koulibaly and Cucurella, James, Mason and Broja all sidelined. So Chelsea aren't going to have, I know they've got millions of players and everything else, but they're not going to have the squad that they want. They could have Aubameyang. You never know.
Firstly, well done, Ferg. That roll of names you've just rolled off there, you've done quite well, to be honest. I'm quite impressed.
Why, thank you.
Yeah.
Why, thank you.
He's definitely been practicing. He's spent hours in the mirror practicing the names with a little hairbrush instead of a mic. But no, I think, look, on tomorrow, right, I think ultimately what we want, I'm going to ignore him, he's being rude. What we want is a performance from the players. We need to just get back to playing our football, going through the process of what we have been trained to do, playing our way, and I do think the result will come. I think Chelsea ultimately don't score that many goals, and I think if they score, it will probably be from mistakes as opposed to them really breaking us down. So back to basics, play good football, we will create opportunities, and I think we'll win comfortably. So I think let's just not give up. Look, I think what I meant earlier wasn't that I think we're going to win the league. I ultimately don't think we're going to win the league now. But I think there's definitely a chance. And I think linking in with a few other questions that people have said and a couple of comments, that I do think City will drop points. I just don't think they'll drop that many. I think City are probably likely to drop maybe 2 points and then they'll pick themselves up again because that is the type of team that they are, because they're such a great team. But never say never. There are teams they're playing against, such as West Ham, Leeds, etc., that are fighting for their lives at the bottom, and don't expect them to go there and give up. They're absolutely not going to do that. You've got teams like Brighton that are still pushing for probably the highest finish that, I don't know if it's the highest finish they've ever had, but certainly highest finish they've probably ever had in the Premier League. So you never know. And ultimately, the final straw is you never know with injuries. You could get an unexpected injury to one or two key players and can completely change it for them, because they may then say, let's focus on the Champions League. Or when it comes into rotating just one or two players like they did for Fulham, maybe it's 3 and 4 players. And you never know. I think stranger things have happened in football. But as I said, if we don't win our games, all that is completely irrelevant.
Del, the Arsenal could beat Chelsea for 3 consecutive league games for the first time since 2003-2004 when they start doping the league. So that would be really nice if we gave them a good seeing to, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, it's a chance to bounce back and give everybody a bit of a pick me up, feel good factor. Because again, it's not just that, it wouldn't be just a win; it would be a win to get us back on track against Chelsea. It's always good to get one up on them, isn't it? I mean, there's a few question marks around the squad, the selection, what you do. I mean, I've got my thoughts on it, but yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really see them causing as many problems. I think the only issue we may have is, somebody put in the comments at the start of tonight's podcast, there's been a lot of individual errors. I think that's if anything, that's what's going to cost us tomorrow.
Yeah, I think squad issues are probably, and injuries have cost us, because, with the loss of Saliba and the change in the way our defence has acted, not solely because of, as people have said, holding, but, Gabriel, I don't think has shone fantastically. We tried to change things up when Zinni was injured a little bit, and we put KT in and made him play a Zinni-type role. So there's lots of different selection pieces. But, we've dropped 7 points in our last 14. We've conceded. I've lost the bloody thing. But basically, we've shipped a load of goals in the last 5 or 6 games and dropped points, and which we haven't been doing beforehand. Trevor, where do you think that is? And do you think we can pick that back up and go with a bit of positivity into tomorrow?
Oh, look, right. We're the Arsenal. Those players will go on that field tomorrow full of positivity and wanting to win the game of football. Absolutely, they will. And I'm sure that we'll go out and win it. I can't see it. Well, we've got to be careful what we say. If we lose to Chelsea, I'll be very, very disappointed indeed, because we're a much better football team than Chelsea are. Much better football team across the park. in all areas. We hold better players. So it is massive tomorrow, because if we don't win tomorrow, then it goes on for it's like 5 games then since we've won, and it starts turning into a bit of a longer bad run. So it's important tomorrow that we go out there and play to our best. If we play to our best, then we win the game. We just mentioned players getting injured, Fergus, while we're on it, and I think that a massive loss to us, because along with Saliba going, has been Tomiyasu. Losing Tomiyasu at the same time has limited Arteta's options greatly. Really, really limited his options, and we've got to think about that. That is a massive effect on what we've done in the previous few weeks. Trying to stay positive, though. I know I said that I don't think we'll win it, but I do hope we'll win it. I do hope that they drop points, but I just thinking about us. Just want to get our lads back on the front foot.
Looking at positives, Arsenal have won 9 out of the last 11 London derbies this season. This is the 12th London derby. If we win that, then it's a record already at 9. Even if we were to draw tomorrow night, we'd want that and not lose. That means we've undefeated in London. So clearly the best team in London. Fat Frank, Christ, he's come back. Would you come back to a club that you've been an absolute failure at? You've gone to Everton, been an absolute failure, and then gone back there. He's winless in 15 consecutive fixtures after losing 9. He just lost game after game after game.
He's brave.
His managerial career's over before it starts. And I just think he knew that going back there as well. But what a job, by the way. If you can get a job as a top-level football manager, you tell me what job you can get sacked at, get a big payoff, and then go get another big job, get sacked, get another big payoff. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. This is the whole managerial merry-go-round, and how it happens, I don't get it. But if you're Frank, why wouldn't you take that job? You've got nothing else to go for. You get a couple of million quid, see you through to the end of the season. Yeah, of course he's going to do it. But I think he just put the final nail in his coffin. Now who's going to want to take him? He's going to have to go right down.
It's not the final now, Dale. He could get a lot lower. He could go.
Oh yeah,
they need that.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be great if he went to Spurs, wouldn't it?
That'd be brilliant.
That would be quite.
Listen, Dan, we need a huge performance tomorrow evening. Not only because we need to get back on the bike and make sure that we are in there should City slip up, but we've got an even bigger game, in my view, on Sunday up at St James's Park. So it just, it shows the importance of tomorrow, just to build the momentum to get back going and going and going again.
Yeah, I think just a bit of confidence at the end of the day. But I think they should take confidence from how things have been going anyway. Look, the last 4 games have not been ideal, but you look at our form over the last 12 games, it's still championship winning form. As I said, we could finish second with 90 points. It is just the fact that we're playing against Man City, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think it's 11 out of 12 games they've now won on the trot, and they drew one of them, which was the Forest game. So you're talking 34 out of 36 points that they've taken. This isn't because we've collapsed or bottled it. Look, and I know I used the word bottled against West Ham because I think we bottled that performance. But bottled the league? No, not at all. We've just come up against a team that are serial winners and can get on a run. And then once they get on that run, they're near on impossible to claw back.
I think you've almost answered this question. Do you count the last few games as a typical Arsenal meltdown, or is there still more at play here? I think you've done that one, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, interesting to see what the other guys think. So I know certainly Trev's got a different opinion on whether we bottled it or not.
He's got rose tinted glasses like Arsenal emblems on there as well.
I can't. In seasons gone past, when we've finished the season badly, I've always had in my head, I'm looking at the players and I'm thinking they're not trying, them players. Their season ended about 8 games before the season ended. I've not seen that with this current squad. They're trying till the end of every game. They're giving away some damn silly goals, which we need to sort quickly. But I still think they're playing for the badge and trying to win every game they're playing. So at the moment, I can't say that it's a usual capitulation at all. I just think we've gone on a bad run at the wrong time of the season every club in the league has got a bad run at some time this season, including City, who have dropped points. Ours has come now. Right at the wrong time. That's the way I'm looking at it. So I'm looking at our players and thinking these boys are not giving up yet.
Del?
Yeah, I think there's a comment by Heath there, and that exact one there. I think we've got a young squad. They're meant to. I do agree with that. I think we touched on it a couple of weeks ago. We've got a very, very young squad who many have never been in this position themselves before. Have they got that grit to take it over the line? We'll soon see. We can't really judge at the moment, but I think this is why I would probably make changes for tomorrow night, because Sunday is going to be a tough game. I think we need to give those who haven't played the opportunity to earn a spot for that game on Sunday, because that's going to be no walk in the park at all. That's a game we could quite easily lose. So this makes tomorrow even more important. Just to touch on a few of the changes I'd make. I don't know. Just looking, I'd bring Jorginho in. I'd bring Jorginho in over Partey. I think Partey has made some errors over the last few weeks. Any other time, if someone keeps making errors and isn't the player who's supposed to be soaking up the pressure, as we mentioned, they arguably should be dropped. There's the Zinchenko KT question at left back again, or we're left wing back, whichever we're going to do, depending on what formation we set up. And I probably would start Trossard tomorrow. I'd probably start Trossard against Chelsea. That there gives us a better overview for what we've got coming up for Sunday. And there's a comment there, which I've just seen come up now, actually. I always say play with a current best 11. I agree. But at the minute, who is our current best 11? We've got the current best 11 we've been starting with. But can we say that's been our current best 11 at present? Because some people haven't been performing. So I would bring some changes tomorrow.
Yeah, I think ultimately though, Dan, this doesn't really matter which 11 plays. It can be one or two players that can come in and come out, but there is definitely a mentality switch that we need. And this isn't just an Arsenal mentality switch. This can happen at any club. And again, there was something I watched the other day with Gary Neville talking about the 97-98 season with Man United. And ultimately, Man United were 12 points clear. I think we had a couple of games in hand still, but they were 12 points ahead of us. And then Roy Keane did his cruciate and Schmeichel got an injury and he was out for 3 or 4 weeks. And then all of a sudden, he was saying we were looking over our shoulders. We were looking at Arsenal coming. They were starting to put wins together and get on a good run. And this was a team in Manchester United that had won quite a few league titles still. So this wasn't a team that's even inexperienced like we are currently. And they were looking over their shoulders and they were getting nervous. So I think it's totally acceptable for the boys to be getting nervous. And as long as they treat it as a learning curve and they do learn from this and then they go again and then they can say, okay, look, this happened before. This is what we need to do different and dig in. Then I'm happy with it. But if it keeps happening again and again...
Dan, I get what you're saying and I agree. Youth and nerves and stuff and inexperience, I allow for all of that. I was talking to somebody today and they said, have you listened to that Antonio podcast? And Antonio from West Ham was on a podcast. And apparently the talk in the dressing room at the Arsenal once the gap started shortening, and I think it was a 5 or 8 point gap, and I haven't heard the clip, but fundamentally the talk they start asking, well, how did West Ham get on? How did Man City get on? What was the Man City result? And they hadn't done that all season, so have they let Man City get in their head?
Well, I can see exactly why, because I think I started doing the same thing. I really haven't bothered about City all season, but the last 6 or 7 games, for some reason, I think I might have even said it to a couple of you guys, but I started getting nervous watching City. I started watching every game of City's, and I was watching them thinking, they're getting closer. And I'm not even on the pitch. I'm not even playing. So, as I said, I think it's acceptable. They just need to learn from it. These are ultimately still human beings, right? And human beings have different feelings, nerves being one of them. And at the end of the season, there can only be one winner. Someone has to come second. And a fantastic, fantastic team in Arsenal could be that team that comes second. But only because of probably at this stage an even better side in City.
Trevor, there's been a lot of talk on social media about, there we go, bottled it, the phrase bottled. I know that you wanted, and we held it, I haven't asked you anything about this because you wanted to talk about this in particular. Off you go.
Right. You got to remember as well that the media have been lurking in the background. They've had nothing to say about Arsenal bad for weeks, and they do like to have a go at us. And the term bottled it suits the media very nicely. So they've been pushing that. They've really been pushing it. You've only got to look at Sky Sports to hear it said so many times. They've just found a chink, and they've decided that they're gonna open the door on the bottling it brigade. But we've got as Arsenal fans, right? As Arsenal fans, we've had a massive season. The end of the season has turned into a bit of a roller coaster of emotions. And I've felt all these emotions, and you can't blame us as Arsenal fans for feeling it. I'm frustrated. I'm really frustrated that we've got so close and we seem to be dropping off. I'm down. I don't know if you've sensed it on tonight's podcast. I'm enthused about watching my Arsenal tomorrow. I'm down about the fact that these young lads have got us so close, and are still in with a chance. Still the only other team in with a chance of winning the league, however small it may be. No one else can say that. Only the Arsenal fans can say we are still in with a shout, So be disappointed, be down, right? Be frustrated. But I've seen it starting to surface, and we all have. Don't abuse our players. Please don't abuse the players, right? Whoever it is. Rob Holding's been taking some terrible stick, But they're all giving 100%. Holding is a backup centre half for Saliba and Gabriel. That's what he's employed by the club for. And if we're winning the game comfortably, sometimes comes on and makes a back three, Holding hasn't come into that side and not given it his all. We've seen a little drop in standard. But he's still giving it everything. And that's all I ask as an Arsenal fan, And they've shown all season, right? They've shown all season that they're playing for this. They're playing for this badge, right? And that's all I ask of them. As a fan, that is all we should ask as fans, right? Play for the badge. Do the best you can, right? There's 18 teams in that league, right? Is there 18 or 19 teams? However many teams, right? It doesn't matter. 20 teams in the league, however many. And of all them other teams, we're the team that can still win it. We've been in front. We've tried our best. We're going to possibly fall a bit short. Don't pick on the players for that. Think of the bigger picture. They've given their all for this club this year, as us fans have. At Manchester City, when we were 4-1 down, Dan and Fergus and myself and every other Arsenal fan in that stadium was singing their heads off for half an hour. Non-stop for half an hour. We'd lost the game. We weren't going to come back and win it, but the fans wanted the players to know how we appreciated them. And that appreciation should come from fans in the stadium away, fans in the stadium at home, fans on social media, fans on podcast. If you're disappointed,
Sorry, Trav, I just put up because you said it. It's all right.
That's all right. You got to let people have their say. Not that one. Trolls has said here that criticism isn't abuse, right? Trolls, criticism isn't abuse. But have a look at social media, what some people have had said against them. Don't deserve it, mate. So I agree. Criticism isn't abuse. We're criticised enough on here tonight, but we've not abused anybody. We've not abused anybody because we're above that. We're Arsenal supporters. Right? I'm losing my voice here, Ferg. I'm off.
Yeah. No, to be fair, Trev, I think you're spot on, right? And that comment, criticism isn't abuse, just again hits the nail on the head. In that, I for one have criticised Rob Holding a lot recently, but when we get in the stadium, we sing his name and we get behind him. And I put a tweet up the other day after the Man City game saying Arteta we're with you and Saka we're with you, etc. and Holding we're with you. And someone commented and said, no, we're not with Holding. And then I think my reply was, well, you're not with us then. If you can't get behind him, you're not an Arsenal fan. I don't see why you would abuse a player. Ultimately, surely you want that player to do well, right?
Absolutely nailed it, Dan. There's a line that you don't cross if you're a true Arsenal fan. Absolutely nailed it, Dan. I'm not even going to add to that. You nailed it, mate.
I just showed you a goal there. No, it's been disallowed, or there was a whistle or something like that. Listen, final question on here is your question, Del, and I'll let you read it out.
Yeah, so as we all know that there's been talk of it week in, week out. We do lack a bit of depth, and we do need certain positions. So the question was really a bit of a 3-part question. So what positions do we need to fill next season? Who do we let go, because we have to let people go? And what players would you realistically like to see come in? I mean, I've got my list, and I'm sure that I'm interested to hear your guys' take on this.
I'll go first. In positions, I think we need to have a keeper, because I don't think Turner's good enough as a backup keeper. I think that would be further down the pecking order. I think we need backup in the backup for Saliba. I think we need backup in the midfield, either Xhaka or Partey. One or the other, they're going to go over the next couple of years. And so I think you need somebody coming in there, because Lokonga's not going to be our guy in there. I think we do need an out-and-out striker as well. And I've said it before we came on air, Ivan Toney are that elk to come in. Trev, your idea of who would you have?
Yeah, well, I need to eat humble pie here, because a couple of weeks ago I said to Dan, I think that in a close season, you only need to buy a couple of players if you're good enough. And I think that the last few weeks have changed my opinion, Fergus. I think the most important one for me is a backup defensive, good, solid central defensive midfielder. Because as we've seen, if Xhaka and Partey are not playing, our levels drop. For some reason, he's been playing Vieira in front of Jorginho when either Xhaka or Partey are missing, which I'm finding really difficult to work out, because I thought that was the exact reason we bought Jorginho as a backup to cover the defensive midfielders. So that's number one for me, a good, solid midfielder to cover with Partey and Xhaka. Number one. Number two, I still want this big striker. And I've seen it in the last few weeks. We had Man City away, right? We didn't have a plan B to go to, really. We didn't have a big lad that we could bring on just to change the outlook of the game, you know? So that's number two for me. And then the third one, the third player I want is a centre-half, because as much as I've supported Holding tonight, it's become clear that he maybe just is a little bit below the level we want. So I want another centre-half to be coming in. And I want Tomiyasu fit, and I want Tierney to stay. And then with them 3 signings I've just said, I'd be very happy.
Dan?
I still think we need 6 or 7. I don't think we can expect that in one window. And I think that's something that we'll see progress over a couple of years to get that quality in, because this isn't 6 or 7 players we need numbers-wise. This is top quality that we need to come in. I think I agree with a goalkeeper. We need a backup goalkeeper. I'm not sure we have enough quality at the minute in terms of depth. So I think Matt Turner for me is number 3, not number 2. I think we need quite clear backup centre-back that can come in and play good football. I think Gahey from Crystal Palace would be a good backup. I think we also need a right back. I think we need a guy that can maybe be an alternative and a bit more of an attacking fullback at times as well, and also someone that we can rely on, because I think Tomiyasu is unfortunately injury prone, and that's something that we can't really have. I think we definitely need a 6, because I think Partey will need replacing long term. I think Jorginho was brought in to fill in for Partey, not as opposed to the 8 role. You know, he can see the game in front of him, whereas when he's got his back to goal on the half turn, he's not that sort of player. So I get that. But holding midfielder, again, I think Caicedo would be, for me, top notch. If we got him, I'd be over the moon. Another 8 to replace Xhaka long term, I think will come in. And then I think I agree with you guys, we need a striker, and I also think we need a winger. I think someone like Serge Gnabry would be a fantastic right winger to come in and compete. You look at City; they've got 3 or 4 players that can play on the wide positions and rotate. And ultimately up top, look, I'd love an Ivan Toney. I also think Osimhen from Napoli would be top level. But are we going to go out and spend all that money on all of them? No, because that would be like 400 or 500 million. So we're probably dreaming if that's what we're expecting.
Del, answer your question.
Yeah, I think there's one name there that I've seen in the comments, and between all of us, I've only seen him mentioned once, and that's Caicedo. Since we were linked with him in January, I've paid a lot more attention to him than I previously would have done. The guy is an absolute machine. He is by far And he would walk into our team, whether we like it or not, whether we've had a great season or not. He would walk into our starting 11 straight away. There's all this talk of Declan Rice, which I think would be another great buy. But for me, if we can prioritise somebody like Caicedo, he immediately takes us up a whole new level. I do think we need a striker. I think we need a different type of striker. That type of striker you mentioned, Fergus, in Ivan Toney. I know we spoke about him beforehand as well. We don't have anybody in that front three who, including on the bench, who can put any real pressure on defenders. I think we need a big guy up there. And the reality is, people like Haaland don't come about every day of the week, right? We know that. But we've got a very, very, very good player in Ivan Toney. Great with both feet, great with his head. And as we saw against us, he can bully defenders. Now, at the time, we had Gabriel and Saliba at the back, and he was giving them a run for their money. And we know he scored an offside goal in the end, but ultimately, I think that's what we need. And then, again, I'd like to see a centre-half. I do believe Rob Holding will be sold. I think it highlights that, unfortunately, probably isn't good enough. We're probably holding on to a few people for sentiment, like El Neni. Patino was mentioned. I think Patino, it came out today that he's probably off. And we spoke about it beforehand. I do like the guy, but if he isn't willing to stay and fight for his place, then he's not the sort of person I want in our club anyway. So, yeah, I think there's quite a few outs to come as well as ins. So it'll be interesting to see who's out the door.
Yeah, I posted on a topic on the Arsenal Fans Forum this morning, and they were talking about Granit Xhaka, KT, and another player all being sold to fund bringing in some players. So they've clearly got some ideas. Guys, we've overshot, and you can see the numbers dropping off because the 8 o'clock game is starting. The ladies are I think they're going into about to start the second half of extra time, so that's going to go into penalties as well. Listen, we go up and down the country, home and away, home. It doesn't matter where you go, but there was a photograph that summed up what it feels like when you don't win.
I think, right, I was just in a bit of shock because I stood there, right, and Dan and me, we were the last Arsenal fans to leave that stadium, right? We were the last. We stood there.
And the photographer.
And I didn't know what to say. I was in shock because I honestly didn't think we would be outplayed as much as we were by City. I honestly thought that we would do better. And it just shows we've still got some work to do. And that's why my view on these signings has changed a bit as well.
Trev, what's going through your mind in that picture? I'm interested to see what you're thinking about, because I remember what I was thinking about.
I think that a Man City fan had been throwing abuse at me about 2 yards away out of that picture, and I was thinking...
He called me a cockney.
He called me a
cockney, and worse.
If I was 10 years younger, but then I did stand there. I think I was, honestly, if I'm honest, I was thinking, I think we've blown the league tonight. I think that's it done. God, I hope I'm wrong, boys. I hope I'm wrong.
What were you thinking, Dan?
I was looking over at the City fans and some of them celebrating on the way out. And I was sitting there thinking, I hope the players have looked at that and seen that too, because I want them to feel exactly as I felt and use that and go again next season, and not say this is just one season where we've had a good season. This is something we're going to build on and say this isn't happening again.
Yeah, I must admit, the last 10, 15 minutes, the City fans were quite unpleasant. And there was a question earlier on, I think it was Stefan had the question about the plastic fans and everything else. And I must admit, 85% of that stadium is full of tourists and day trippers and corporate tickets. And there's many a time you see the camera pans into the Etihad or the Etihad, and there's empty seats and there's mobile phones and people on Twitter and everything else. But to either side of the away section, especially in the lower tier, it's quite vociferous, old school City fans, and they were not pleasant. There was a lady behind me when we moved down to that row 2, row 3 she was in, and that fella that hurled the abuse at me and you, it was absolutely disgusting towards her and her daughter. And the annoying thing was that the police were just right there, and they could do nothing, because if they'd done something, they explained to me, if they'd done something to the City fans, all the City fans would have kicked off, and it was going to be me and you, Dan, that were going to get kicked out of the stadium, and we didn't shout any abuse at them, which is absolutely wrong. But listen, let's look on to the Chelsea game, and just to get us in the mood, as usual, we'll have a bit of this. Boys, thank you very much. Everybody out there, you have been watching an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans. Yeah, for Arsenal fans. Were you going to say something?
We can't not put our predictions on tomorrow night, right?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Call him
I'll go 2-1. Right, Del.
I'm going 4-0.
Oh,
I'm going to go 3-1.
3-1.
I'm going to go 3-0.
There we go. People in the chat, you got a few seconds. We'll put it up while the music is playing out. If you like what we do, click on the...
Ferg, listen, don't put me on full screen, because this applies for all of us, right? We've been a bit down tonight. We've had to be. But we'll all be there tomorrow night singing and shouting our heads off, because as fans, we're going to give it our all. That's what we do all the time, isn't it? You know? So anyone watching this, don't think we're going to go tomorrow night and be quiet or be down or not sing our songs and not shout and scream. We'll all be shouting and screaming. We'll all be positive. We'll all be singing our heads off, because we are the Arsenal. Sorry, Ferg. Had to be said.
That's fine. And meet in the usual place. We've got a table booked, and we'll see you there. Right. Up the Arsenal. Fuck the Spurs.
You've been listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons and Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too.